Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Good afternoon. Sorry, we had a few just technical difficulties, but it seems like things have kind of settled in now. So welcome again. My name is Erica Hartsfield. I'm Associate Director on the admissions team here at Stern, and I'm joined by my colleague, Hannah Single, as well as a few of our current students. And today we'll be discussing non-traditional career paths at Stern and how our program will lead you to success. So throughout the webinar, I encourage you to ask questions via the Q&A function, and feel free to just send those through as you see fit. We'll do our best to cover as many of them as possible. And now I'd like to just take some time and introduce our current MBA students and have them tell you a little bit about their non-traditional career paths. So we will start with Tiffany Cole. Tiffany, could you just introduce yourself to the group and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany. I'm an MD MBA student who is 3 out of 4 years through my MD program. So as a disclaimer, not a doctor yet. I'm coming from the healthcare field. It's a very traditional kind of hierarchical apprenticeship model-based industry. And so as a lot of the MBA students here, kind of we hope to be the future leaders and change makers in whatever industry we end up in. Healthcare does kind of pose a special set of challenges that come with that. Otherwise, I've got a background in nonprofit work as well. And so, there's a lot of issues in terms of experience deficits in the nonprofit world. A lot of people are kind of tasked with figuring out a lot of these, how to run an organization or how to run a business without necessarily that kind of formalized training. So those are my kind of two sides of non-traditionalness that I'll be representing here.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg. I am an MBA 1, so first-year MBA student here at Stern. From the Midwest, and I come from an engineering background, but that's not really where my uniqueness in my career path lends itself to. It really comes in with what I want to do after Stern, and that is get into real estate development. There are a few of us, a handful here in our MBA 1 program that are all trying to do real estate development, but it is kind of a subcategory of the main focuses that people tend to have coming out of Stern. I guess we can get in a little bit deeper on how Stern's been really great in helping me have that non-traditional path. But my background kind of started in engineering, and then I started doing real estate investing on the side from Indiana and lived in Cincinnati, Ohio for the last few years, where it's a lot more reasonable to actually invest and get involved in real estate than New York City, where even a parking space is probably out of my budget. But coming here and learning real estate, there is no better place in the world than New York City, and in my opinion, Stern, to get a head start on that.
Thank you. And finally, we have Connie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Connie Meltzer. I'm from the New York City area. I left for a while to go to the Midwest to go to undergrad in Wisconsin, and I spent 2 years as an AmeriCorps member in Milwaukee, working in college access and success. And prior to Stern, I spent my whole career in education. I'll be going to nonprofit consulting, so still staying within the social impact world, but working for a for-profit firm where all of our clients will be nonprofits. So really staying in that social impact space and going from there.
Great, excellent. So I guess we'll start taking it back a little bit and kind of thinking back to your journey to Stern and how you got here. So Connie, I guess, why did you decide to pursue an MBA, especially considering the career path that you were looking to pursue?
Yeah, so I didn't mention, but I'm a second-year student here, so I've gone through the internship process as well. And when I was at the couple of organizations I was at before I applied to Stern, each nonprofit that I worked at was at a stage of growth. And the ones that I saw do that, I would say, like most efficiently and effectively, had hired consultants. They had the strategy know-how. They had the operational capacity to think about what that meant for the organization. And I wanted to be someone who helped nonprofits grow effectively to serve more of their clients. and stakeholders. And I felt that instead of going to get an MBA, I would have a huge leverage from an MBA program. I was a sociology and English literature undergrad, so I felt like getting the external experience from the business world to bring back to the nonprofit world really made sense. I'm from this area, and so I really wanted to stick around in New York and really build my network here, which is why NYU made a great opportunity.
Great. Excellent. Greg, could you share?
Absolutely. Coming from an engineering background, I would say during undergrad I had that kind of stereotypical engineer mindset of all I need to know how to do is build the best product possible. I didn't really care about the finance or the marketing or really the holistic business view of what really business meant, what running a company and being involved in a company was all about. I was fortunate enough to work for a little startup company right out of undergrad where it's 20 employees and I shared an office with a few other people, but the office next to mine was our CFO. And he became a mentor of mine where as I started realizing how little I knew about finance and about accounting, he mentored me in kind of fostering that curiosity that I had and really developing a passion for understanding business. And the more that I learned, I think the more I realized that I really didn't know anything and I needed to build that toolkit to be able to take my career to the next level. Ultimately, I strive to be an entrepreneur eventually, if not a little bit on the side while I'm taking this journey. But the biggest driver for me was rounding out my toolkit of what I knew about business and what I knew about the industry of real estate as I try to pivot into that space as well. But I think curiosity was the biggest thing that drove me here. And coming to Stern, it's a place where curiosity is kind of fostered. You can ask questions. It's a very collaborative space. I can tell a little bit of a story really quickly if I might. When I came here for my interview, I was walking out and hadn't really signed up for any tours, was kind of just doing my own thing, and I ended up meeting someone standing by the elevator just a couple 100 feet away from where we're sitting right now doing this webinar, and he showed me around the whole campus and spent like an hour and a half just showing me around because I happened to stand next to him at the elevator. Fast forward to now, like reconnected with him after I got in, and he's again become one of my mentors here in New York City. He isn't in real estate, but really has helped me figure out what things to kind of focus on while here at Stern, and I think that relational piece of an MBA is something that's fairly unique here at Stern.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, and we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into like the community aspect here at Stern and life at Stern. But I guess, Tiffany, if you could explain, especially being a dual degree student, why did you kind of decide to go down that path and why Stern?
Yeah. So prior to medical school, I was actually, I deferred my medical school entrance to work for 2 years for a health nonprofit down in Central America. And it was really during that time that I got kind of inspired into looking into MBA programs. One of my great mentors there, he was the CEO of the organization, and benefit of a small organization, you kind of get a lot of face time with these high-level leadership roles. And the organization as a whole really relied on his kind of business background, business know-how to guide the organization's, long-term strategy, to kind of keep checks on its financial sustainability and all these other aspects that really kind of, a lot of these important things that I found were so pivotal in making the organization successful. So for me, he kind of challenged me to look beyond just like the clinical medicine and think about these broader issues of, how do we motivate communities? How do we tie together health systems in these, into the direction that we want them to go? And so as I was already queued up to go to medical school, I started getting more interested in these business fundamentals. And then also throughout medical school too, working with various levels of staff and administration within a hospital, you notice that kind of like how, we were talking about with nonprofits, a lot of successful nonprofits have great backing of consultants or business know-how. It's the same thing is true with healthcare, is that we somehow expect doctors to be also good businessmen, businesswomen, which is a kind of unrealistic expectation that we put on them. So being able to combine clinical knowledge with also a business kind of set of fundamentals seemed really valuable for kind of tackling these like larger social issues in the future.
Great, thank you. All right, so now let's kind of transition into your time at Stern, right? And your time as a student here so far. So at Stern, we have a variety of professional and recreational clubs for students that provide opportunities to network as well as build community. And Greg kind of alluded to this notion of community and how that's really an important thing here at Stern, something that we definitely like to foster amongst our students. So I guess we'll start with Greg. So as someone who's pursuing a less traditional career path and kind of looking to pivot into real estate, can you talk a little bit about how you found community at Stern?
Absolutely. So to kind of give a picture to everyone listening, the traditional career path, it's very set up and very organized, where there are plenty of events and companies that come to campus looking to recruit people. But for some of these non-traditional paths, it is a little bit more free-flowing in that you can make the structure and the timing be whatever you want it to be, and kind of you can make it fit your schedule. But with that comes you have to put some time and effort into it as well. I think what Stern does well is it provides all of those opportunities week one and says, if you're interested in these things, spend this first semester figuring out where you actually want to end up. There are plenty of us that come to get our MBA and we don't know what the rest of our life looks like. We don't know what our path should be. But taking that first semester to kind of get involved in as many of the clubs, or at least like go to one or two meetings to try to find out what a job in that industry would look like, is one of the areas that I think is really beneficial. I bounced around a few of the clubs the first few weeks, where I went to like the business analytics group, talked a lot with the consumer products, consumer packaged goods company group, like the marketing side of things, and ultimately kept coming back to real estate, which is what I had a strong inclination that that's where I would end up, but wanted to give myself the leeway to make a pivot if I felt like it was necessary. Once I landed on real estate, the club and Stern also has a Center for Real Estate Research that have both been extremely valuable in helping all of us that are doing real estate in the city in this program build connections and build kind of this timeline of what we should be doing when, to make sure that we set ourselves up well for success, not only for an internship, but also for full-time careers. And a lot of that comes with building the network. And I think, like we talked about community, just to harp on that again, I know it probably sounds cheesy, and I probably kind of rolled my eyes when I was listening to this stuff before coming here, but I think it really is important. And you see, especially being in a city this large, community is important. You can feel so lost in a place that has so many people, and coming from a place that was nowhere near this size, having this community has helped me really figure out where I want to go and how I want to get there. The first few weeks, the real estate club specifically brings back a lot of recent alumni who talk about their time at Stern and what they did to get to where they are in their career now. And I've leveraged a lot of those relationships. I'm doing an in-semester internship now, or just working a few hours a week for a smaller real estate shop over in Brooklyn, from one of those connections that I made one of the first, I think it was like the third or fourth week of the school year, and just kind of has stayed in touch with some of the contacts there. And it's really, it feels like a friendly environment, and that community piece is a huge part of being in one of the non-traditional paths.
Yeah, definitely. And briefly, if we can go, and we'll start with you, Tiffany, if you could just share what clubs you're a part of, that'd be great.
Yeah, in terms of professional clubs, I mean, I certainly gravitate to the Healthcare Association as well as the Social Impact Group we have on campus. Those are kind of my go-to in terms of like career-related guidance, just because I do find myself in the middle between this like healthcare side and also the nonprofit social impact side of myself. As far as where I find community, though, I found a lot of sense of community fulfillment in the more of the affinity groups. For example, I'm really involved in our Out class, which is our LGBTQ group. But beyond that, I think there's a huge culture at Stern around allyship, not just in the LGBTQ sense, but allyship across all boards. So for example, there's, you know, a Latin American club, and even if you yourself don't identify as being Latin American or having that sort of heritage, there's generally with any of these clubs a membership option of kind of a lesser membership fee also with like signing up for their club as an ally. And so you can still participate in these different like cultural groups, cultural activities without you yourself identifying. And really the entire culture at Stern promotes this and promotes like everyone signing up for all of these clubs that really interest them, regardless of, without fear of feeling like they're an outsider that might be unwelcome. You know, we welcome allyship and we encourage it in all walks. So that's been like really fulfilling in terms of my sense of community.
Yeah, I'd say on the professional side, I like am a member of the Social Impact and Sustainability Association. I'd say like more as like an affinity group in some ways for me in business school. But I really leveraged the Management Consulting Association for my own benefit. I went through the whole interview prep process with one of the big professional clubs on campus. I did a small study group. I went to the casing boot camp, knowing that in any nonprofit consulting interview, I was going to get a case similar to any management consulting firm. I even thought on my career path that I applied to some big management consulting firms. Maybe I would get an internship over the summer, see if I liked it. That didn't end up happening. I was pretty happy with that actually, compared to what some other people did. But I knew that it would be a great experience. So even if I landed there, I would have that on my resume. With it not working out, I looked into opportunities from the Social Impact and Sustainability Association listserv. I looked at the Center for Sustainable Business. I looked at the Center for Business and Human Rights, all of which offer internship opportunities and ways to get involved on campus.
Great. And so again, you know, finding that sense of community is important, especially if you're someone who may be looking to pursue a career path that is quote unquote non-traditional. But certainly, you know, at Stern, we value the giving students an opportunity to really learn by doing. So have any of you participated in any experiential learning opportunities, and particularly thinking about your career path, how has that kind of, you know, impacted or kind of helped you going down that path? We'll start with you, Connie.
Yeah, actually last semester I did a pretty intensive practicum that was 12 credits of my 15 credit course load, where I participated in an interdisciplinary and inter-school program that's run at Columbia Law School called the Center for Public Research and Leadership, where I had a seminar on education equity in the United States and kind of like what levers you can do to create a more equitable environment. I had skills training in how to be a good consultant and how to be a good nonprofit manager. And then I did a consulting project for an education organization here in New York and along the East Coast. So I really got my hands dirty with what I intend to do in the future. It was a really great opportunity. I met students from NYU Wagner, the School of Public Service, NYU Law School, Columbia Law School, Princeton Public Policy, Vanderbilt Education, really all over the place. And it was a really great semester of like really diving back into what I'm most passionate about, which is education equity in the United States, but thinking about how to use that and develop the skills I need to do the work after school.
Great. Excellent. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I can talk about, I guess, one class that I'm currently enrolled in, so I can't speak too much to it, but I'm really excited about is a class on sustainability for competitive advantage, and it has a component within the class where we're working with, we'll be working as a group to create some sort of sustainability strategy type project for a local company. It's something that I'm excited about because it was, you know, taking, say, like a 12 credit workload of something that's really immersive is can be really daunting. And so this for me was kind of a small way to, you know, it's a regular 3 credit class. It fits right into my schedule along with like all the other classes that I'm still eager to take. So it was very kind of like a low barrier entry point for a lot of these experiential things. And then kind of further on, like looking into doing like the DBIs or any other opportunities that kind of come up. But I figure starting small, and I like, one of the things that I like is that, yeah, Stern offers kind of a wide range of opportunities from small things to big things of how to what degree you can incorporate experiential aspects into your learning.
Great, excellent. Well, thank you so much for kind of sharing your take on student life and, again, community and kind of the resources in that respect. So now we'd like to talk a little bit about how Stern has supported you in your career through our alumni network, Office of Career Development, and, of course, just general networking. So I guess first and foremost, we'll start with you, Greg. What is the recruiting process like for someone looking to go into your industry?
Yeah. So for real estate, I kind of hinted at this a little bit, but it can be what you want it to be. So for me specifically, the recruiting path has been first semester really just networking with as many people in real estate in the city as I can. And I found that by throwing out kind of like playing that, hey, I'm a student card, people are very willing to meet with you and help you make decisions and kind of take you on as a connection and someone to just grab coffee with and chat about what I think I want to do and talk to people about what they do on their day-to-day job and figure out if that's where I want to end up. That was kind of the first step for me, and I set a personal goal where I wanted to meet with like 2 or 3 people a week, and I usually met that, but it wasn't like a hard and fast, like I have to do this every single time, but I feel like I did a decent job with it. And then as the first semester started wrapping up, a lot of these job postings end up on NYU's career page. And I would just once a week usually search real estate on the page and then click like the internship filter and then read through all the job descriptions of the 15, 20, whatever jobs were up there for real estate specifically in the area that I wanted to go into. I started applying there and then also started reaching out to some of the connections that I'd made over the prior semester, asking if their companies were looking at doing MBA interns or if they weren't like structurally doing that, if they considered kind of pitching that to their managers to see if maybe we could create some opportunities that weren't necessarily real opportunities yet. What ended up happening for me, I ended up getting an offer through Stern's Office of Career Development, so one of the postings that was on NYU Stern's careers page, and I will be this summer working for BlackRock in their real assets management group. So it'll specifically be investing in real estate and infrastructure projects, and it'll be mostly on the debt side, but some on the private equity and asset management side, which is really exciting for me specifically because it is right in that finance wheelhouse where I wanted to be. But I did feel like looking through the process, there were plenty of opportunities through Stern, but also enough outside of Stern that you can network and find connections and kind of leverage the recent alumni and even some of the more distant alumni to help you get in contact with people that are doing what you think you want to do. The other piece that just in the last week has been massive for me in figuring out what I want to do and how I want to get there. I had 2 offers that I was deciding between, and they were very different. So I reached out to several of the Stern alum and said, hey, I don't know what to do. I think I know where I should go, but I'm not really sure. I haven't worked in the real estate industry as a career yet, and I think I know where I want to end up. Asking these people, would they be willing to jump on a quick 15-minute phone call to help me kind of talk through what I think each position entails and which one would help me get to the goals in the career that I ultimately want to have. I didn't have a single one of them say, no, I won't talk to you on the phone. Everyone picked up, and I was able to really get a lot more clarity on that decision-making process, which can be one of the most stressful parts of the career search.
Yeah, definitely. And Connie, could you speak a little bit to someone pursuing a career in the nonprofit space? How did you find support through the Office of Career Development and maybe even through some of our alums?
Yeah, so I would say through OCD, I think they do a really good job of first doing like level setting for everyone. Like everyone goes through the same process of how to build your resume, how to have a coffee chat, how to network, how to attend a corporate event, and then through the application process and interviews on campus and what those expectations are. But I actually find the most help with the career counselors in the Office of Career Development. Each time I've gone in, I've maybe met with 1 or 2 of the career counselors in the office there, and they know exactly what I'm looking for, and they can help me through any stage of the process. So when I was going through the interview process with my internship over the summer, I had to figure out like if this was the right move for me between one or the other. I had 2 different opportunities, one of which I had like a final offer at, and one of which was a like very early stage interview process. So I had to decide if I was going to continue through that interview process. And I had a counselor help me make that decision that I was going to be able to leverage the internship experience I had over the summer at a social enterprise into a consulting opportunity in the fall and what that would look like for my resume. I'm going into OCD this week to talk about negotiating salaries too, which is really actually, it's incredibly important when you're thinking about going into a social impact space that doesn't necessarily have the same capacity to pay at a like MBA or management consulting level, but knowing that you have an MBA makes you an incredibly competitive candidate in that space. So I'm going to talk through that with one of the counselors. I'm trying to think just off the career development. I'd say like for just like when those internships come up, they mostly come up in the spring. A lot of nonprofits don't necessarily know they can have an intern, let alone an MBA intern. And then finally, over the summer, I used a internship fund on campus to work for the social enterprise. I had to go through a really pretty easy application process that made sure that the employer that I was going to over the summer was able to contribute a little bit. And then additionally that they were like a social enterprise that made sense for that internship. That's called the Social Impact Internship Fund. And that helped me have an MBA internship salary over the summer that if I wanted to go work at a nonprofit, I might not necessarily be able to get.
Great. Yeah. Tiffany, I saw you kind of nodding your head there. So tell us a little bit about how you found support through the Office of Career Development.
Yeah, no, I definitely second the idea that the career counselors are amazing. They have such a wealth of knowledge and resources, and definitely recruiting for. I'm trying to recruit for healthcare nonprofits at the moment, and it's been a process that's taken a lot of discipline, a lot of taking time out of your own schedule to search through the web, try different keywords, try different organizations and foundations, and look for connections, because a lot of these things aren't really mapped out through the traditional recruiting process on campus. And because it's been taking a lot of just that self-discipline to really just sit down and do that and look for these things, I've kind of used our career counselors as pseudo like accountability help as well, you know, frequent check-ins, just say like, hey, here's what I've done this month, like what should I really be doing for the next month, like goal setting. Every application has been completely different from the other, so just getting a second set of eyes to look at cover letters has been insanely helpful. Coming from a science background, I am not a writer, and so having as many eyes on my cover letters has been great. And then just all of the resources at NYU. NYU is a big institution, and I think there's so much there that can be really easily missed if you're just kind of perusing the different websites and departments online. And so having somebody who's been here for, you know, years upon years, like guided so many students through the process, they know these resources like the back of their hand, and they map you out of like, you click here on this tab and this site and this department, and you know, it's like a 10-step process for every resource, but like they know exactly how to get you to where you're going. And so just those pieces of guidance has really really helped accelerate the search, whereas I think it would have been much more drawn out and painful process if I were to be doing that on my own.
Great. Thank you. All right, and so maybe there's people who are interested in careers outside of the three that we've mentioned here. What are some other quote unquote non-traditional career paths that you may be familiar with that some of your peers may be pursuing?
Off the top of my head, I think this one's probably more traditional than what we've discussed, but a lot of people that want to do media and entertainment, obviously NYU is a great school for attracting that kind of personality and that kind of interest. I think that's one where the clubs and the different organizations around have also been very helpful for my friends that are trying to pursue that as well.
I think I have a friend who was at City over the summer, but she's mostly interested in startups, and I think being interested in startup in kind of like any industry, but like working at a small firm it's just a totally different recruiting process and a different timeline and all the networking. And she is just like a powerhouse at networking. She like goes to every event, and how many people can you refer me to after this meeting? And I'd say like that has been really successful for her.
I have one more that's really, really weird, and I only know one person that's doing this.
Let's do it.
If you don't mind me sharing it.
Sure.
My friend Michael is starting a search fund, which I had never heard of. But really, the concept is he's going to venture capital partners and saying, I want you to invest in me, not me, Greg, but Michael, him, as a potential CEO of a company. And he's going to use this backing to go buy a company to essentially place him in as the CEO and kind of take a smaller company that's looking to scale and jump in and take that leadership position and run with it from the start, which I think is, there are a few people doing it, but I've gotten to hear this process from Michael's viewpoint from the last couple of weeks, and it just sounds really interesting and something that I think you have to be kind of a self-starter and really know what you want to do that, but it is a path that he's found help here at Stern in doing.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Great. All right, so before we kind of close out with some questions, I guess what are some tips that you would give to prospective students? So most of our listeners are either in the process of preparing, their MBA applications were recently submitted. So I guess, and we'll start with you, Tiffany, could you share maybe what advice would you give to someone who's considering a career path in a less traditional path? You can speak more specifically to healthcare, but less traditional in general.
Yeah, I think particularly when you're at the application phase of like kind of considering going into an MBA, I think it's really important to nail down what exactly that experience is going to add to like your future career. Sometimes it can be a tough sell to really convey your message and your story when you're coming from these non-traditional paths if it's not really, really clearly articulated in your mind first. And so for me, coming from a healthcare path, you know, I have this story of working in a healthcare nonprofit, seeing kind of the business value in that nonprofit, and then trying to then incorporate this MBA into my medical training so that I can go back into healthcare nonprofit work as kind of more in that like strategy and kind of top leadership type role. And so that narrative, it took me a while to really be able to articulate that clearly. But I think definitely that like self-reflection, the more time you take to think about and reflect on yourself and kind of the meaning and the purpose of the MBA will just, you know, come back in twofold in terms of like helping you with your personal statements for applications, helping you with interviews to really kind of convey what you're all about in a sense.
Nice. Thank you. Any other tips?
I would say be patient. I think we've all kind of shared in the recruiting process, the non-traditional paths can really happen more in the spring, and you'll see some of the more traditional paths, people getting job offers a little bit earlier. Be patient because you will find the job that you want. You'll find the right path for you, and it can be really tempting to kind of cave towards some of those more traditional paths. And there's nothing wrong with that if you do end up doing it. But if you're passionate about something and you know it's what you want to do, being happy every day in your job is going to end up paying dividends far beyond getting an internship offer a month earlier than what you would have if you would have stuck with what your passion was.
I think kind of on the application side, I think like knowing that any business school and NYU, I would say Stern in particular, like really values diversity in a class and diversity in professional experience. So like writing something that you think they want to hear is not necessarily the way to go, like being really genuine with what you want to do and what you're going to bring to the table. Each of your experiences, whether it's in healthcare or in real estate or a nonprofit or in any other experience, I think there's a former pastor in this class. That experience is valuable and it brings a perspective to the classroom that will challenge your classmates and your professors as well. That really enriches the learning environment. So just your experience is valuable, and I'm excited for you.
Yes, as we all are. Yeah, great. So we have about 20 minutes or so left. So we wanted to open it up to some questions. And as a reminder, we've received a handful of them here, but feel free to, again, use that Q&A function, and we will try to get to as many as possible. So first, yes, we are recording this webinar, and it'll be available to you after this session. So we are likely going to send it out via email, and it'll be available on our website as well. Okay, so I guess, let's see. How have you, and I'll kind of open this up to the floor here, but how did you build your coursework around your non-traditional career path?
I can start. This is Connie. I actually went for things that I wouldn't necessarily take, and then thought about what I really wanted out of business school, which was core management skills, data analytics, and strategy, and I took those classes. I took operations as something I was oh, maybe I'm interested in supply chain, and actually thinking about operations principles has really helped me think about how to run an organization in the most efficient way. So I really got outside my comfort zone. I think with grade non-disclosure, you're really able to take classes that you are going to learn and be challenged in. I'm taking developing managerial skills this semester, which the professor kind of said at the first class, I want to make you into a manager where people are willing to do anything for you. And I think that is something that the nonprofit space is not necessarily, does not have in spades. So I'm hoping to be that manager. And then my other favorite class last year was decision models and analytics, which was an Excel solver problem every day for how to make decisions just on business problems using Excel as a tool. So I got a really hard skill, and then I'm thinking about all of those skills that go into being a good manager as well.
All right, and someone who's interested in consulting asked, and maybe if you could speak to it to the best of your ability, if they'd like to get involved in consulting in a particular vertical, how realistic is it to get work experience in consulting and in that particular area, particular industry?
Look at PwC or any matrixed firm, and then do your networking with the people in that. I looked into people and org work, and PwC really stuck out to me as someone I could go in and do the work that I really wanted to do right away. I was industry agnostic, and so I was okay, industrials, there's always work here, and I ended up interviewing with the industrials people in org group. Didn't get it, but I would take a look and really hit home if that's what you want to do. See which firms have the real estate consulting for big management consulting, and then for more boutique firms, it's definitely going to be more of that non-traditional recruiting path.
Yeah, I think to echo that, it's definitely possible to do that. I have friends in my class that are doing internships specifically in an industry of consulting that they wanted to get into, but I think they applied to several different general consulting ones as well, just because you're trying to figure out exactly where you want to end up and how you want to shape your career. But I think it is definitely possible.
I also think about learning from different industries and leveraging that experience back into the industry that you want to go into.
Yeah, definitely. All right, and how can the Stern MBA help facilitate a pivot from one industry to another?
I can touch a little bit on that. So I was not really in real estate at all in my prior career, and I have some friends that are doing career pivoting as well. I think an MBA is a unique time because you have this opportunity to reshape what your concentrations are and what your interests are, and there are so many ways to get involved that you'd be shocked how quickly your resume can fill up with relevant experience where it almost doesn't even feel like you're pivoting anymore by the end of your first year. Like my friend Ross, who was a Latin teacher before coming to Stern, and he's trying to get into consulting now. And he's been involved in the consulting club and done case competitions and just really gotten involved in giving back to the community, to the campus in a way that makes him really attractive to a consulting company and coming in with a unique viewpoint. There are countless different ways to switch careers and switch paths. But I do think that that's something that the companies that come here to recruit, they're not going to hold it against you that you didn't work in an industry before coming to Stern. I think that everyone kind of understands we're here, a lot of us are here to pivot, and that's okay. It's very typical, and it's not anything to be afraid about.
Thank you. And can one of you speak more about career treks for non-traditional paths? Someone said, for example, healthcare, or maybe just some of the like experiential or real-world learning that you get.
Yeah.
Non-traditional paths.
I think the specializations go a long way with that. And it's nice because the specializations are still very flexible in that, you know, you can select up to 3 specializations, but you don't have to have any at all. And so for me, coming from a healthcare and nonprofit background, I've really gravitated towards the healthcare and the sustainability specializations. And those are kind of my home base in terms of finding classes that I like, finding experiential learning opportunities that I like. I join the professional club listservs, the email lists, and other, you know, centers for sustainability. Like, a lot of these resources send out their own set of emails and set of opportunities. So just kind of tuning into those avenues has really helped. But then also kind of coming back to the specializations, it's nice that they're not restrictive. They don't really lock you into anything. And so if you do find something through any of these various channels that doesn't fit into a specialization, you don't have to really concern yourself of like, you know, you don't have to worry that pursuing this is at the risk of losing something else. You know, you can really kind of hyper customize your schedule to whatever degree you want.
Yeah.
I think on the like company visit trek side of things, there have been some really exciting stuff put on by clubs. So like STA will do a trek to San Francisco every year in Seattle. STA is the Technology Association here. We have a new club on campus called Canna Business. They've been doing a ton of treks to CBD companies, really being at the forefront of that new industry. And then I know CISA also does treks to social enterprises in the New York City area. And by the nature of being in New York, you have so many opportunities to go visit companies and to go network with those employers.
Nice. And speaking about that networking piece, we'll kind of combine these two questions, but kind of thinking about alums, how did alumni networking help you in your career search? And did you notice a difference in response between contacting an alum via phone or email, or what was that like response, or how receptive were they to you reaching out?
I cold emailed a ton of people, like way too many people. There's a pretty good database, especially of recent last 5-10 year alumni, of what industry they went into, what companies they went to work for, and then their Stern email. You'd be shocked how many people still have like their Stern email on their phone 5 years after they graduated. So I cold emailed a ton of people, and then typically from there, after I'd meet with someone, I would ask at the end of kind of having coffee with them, hey, is there anyone else that you think I should be reaching out to? And that usually led to another phone number or an email. I've had a few people not respond, but I think it's because they don't check their Stern email. And ironically enough, I've ended up somehow getting connected with a lot of them in another way, and they never knew that I emailed their Stern email. But that's the minority. I think majority is that people respond. The alumni want to help out. They want this community to continue to grow and improve, and they're going to help any way they can. So I think cold email, call, people are receptive to everything. I think nowadays, if you see a number you don't know on your phone, you might get put to voicemail because they assume it's one of those robocalls. But as soon as you say, hey, I'm so-and-so from Stern, you're going to get a call back.
Also LinkedIn, I'd say. And the other thing is that the Stern community of alumni is really fantastic, but also the NYU alumni community and like people who graduated Stern undergrad, that I think I'm taking a job with someone who, gave me the okay because she's Stern undergrad. So I'd say like that alumni network is not just the Stern MBA network, which is so amazing. I put on an event during lunchtime and reached out to alumni. Every one of them emailed back like, yes, what's the date? How can I get involved? Yeah. So I think it's not just for networking, but it's also giving back to the community.
Yeah, that's great. And kind of speaking about that larger NYU network, have any of you utilized any other schools at NYU as resources for academics or career? Obviously, being dual degree.
Yeah, I'm still early on in the MBA process, being an MBA 1, but definitely I'm hoping to really incorporate the School of Public Health into my education, just because a lot of the global health issues that I am interested in are very public health issues as well. So Wagner is a great program here for public health, and they do a lot of, some of our classes that are accepted under our sustainability specialization, for example, are actually hosted at Wagner. So there's a lot of cross-programming already built in, and the flexibility of Stern is that, you know, if we find, say, like courses or opportunities offered at other schools within NYU, we could kind of bring that to the attention of our administration, and they can consider whether or not to, you know, award credits and stuff, and they're very open to having those conversations. So that's been definitely a reason why I started looking into Stern, and a reason why I'm very happy to be here now.
Great, thank you. And how did you choose your career coach and get matched to one? What is that process like?
I can talk about this. I feel like career coaches in the Office of Career Development, like everyone has your file, so you can really see anyone at any stage. I met with a couple different ones and then felt like I had good rapport with those people, and so I just looked for their availability. It's all done through like our career website. It's pretty easy to get an appointment. And then they also have drop-in hours every day. So if you just have like a quick question or want a cover letter review, you can bring it during those those drop-in hours.
I know quite a few alums who are still like actively like having conversations with the career coaches that they worked with, like, and this is like 7 years out. They're still calling them for career advice and walking in, so they're great. Okay, and are there ways to work with professors on projects during the school year?
Yeah, so we have something here called Stern Solutions, which is an experiential learning opportunity. I know someone who went to Botswana with a professor over winter break because they're working on one of their projects. Basically, a professor is doing some research, thinking about a project, usually with a business or economics angle, and you apply for that course, get involved. I haven't done it, but I've got some friends who have.
On the real estate side, sorry, kind of similar story there. Stern does a program called DBI, which is Doing Business In. And there's a course that I'm not taking this semester, I'm hoping to next year, but Doing Business in Panama is one of the courses where you go down over spring break to Panama and get to see some real estate investments and different aspects of that side of investing. And also, I was in a real estate class last semester, and our class didn't have this happen, but it has happened in the past, where the capstone of that class is you put together a real estate deal and you pitch it to real investors. And conveniently, all of our real estate professors are also real professors, so, or real industry, like they own their own either real estate development company or work for one. They're not just professors. A lot of them are teaching kind of as a part of their career, and they have the connections. And we had the class the semester before last in the real estate class, one of the, I guess, hypothetical investments that someone pitched at the end of the class ended up getting picked up by one of the investor judges, and the students that pitched it got to help with the development and like run that project and invest in it themselves, which is really neat.
Great. So I guess this is career specific, so maybe you can or can't answer this, but can you maybe speak more about the consulting boot camp, and then for someone who may be interested in fashion retail, have you heard about any resources in that space?
Yeah, I can, this is Connie. I can talk about Consulting Boot Camp. Basically, the second year MBAs will put on a case interview boot camp. It happens like once a week. They do, 4 or 5 sessions, take you through each part of the case interview to really get you up to speed. I definitely went from knowing nothing about a case to completing like 40 of them before my interviews with my peers. And then they also set you up in a small study group where you work closely with an MBA too who's gone through the process. That's case boot camp. I would take a look at the Management Consulting Association website. They've got a lot of information on there about that. But people are really ready to give back, and the MBA twos who run the case boot camp are like just doing it because they like teaching and they want to pay it forward to the next class. I'm trying to think about fashion. Anyone got?
I know a tiny bit. So I have a friend at home who's doing the fashion. I think it's really technically like a joint degree type thing. So it's like a fashion track. So I don't know a ton about it. But I don't know if our emails get shared, I can connect you with her, and I'm sure she'd be happy to jump on a phone call or at least email back and forth if you have specific questions.
I think one of the great things is we have this focused MBA program that's a one-year fashion luxury opportunity, and having those students, if you are instead doing a full-time 2-year MBA, having those students really immersed, you have the ability to connect with them and see what they're learning in their classes. You, both of like the full-time focused tech and the fashion luxury focused MBAs are really integrated into any curriculum. You're able to take all of those classes. Stern was Fashion Lux powerhouse before that focused MBA, because we are right here in New York. Amazing professors, awesome opportunities in that space. And then there's also a club on campus. I think it's called the Fashion Luxury Association, something like that. And they do a conference in the fall every year. I know about it because they have great swag bags, but definitely take a look into that. I'm sure there are really great speakers.
And then last couple of questions here, but speaking more to the admissions process, right? And maybe as someone who's looking to make a significant pivot or pursue that non-traditional career path, telling your story and telling us how having a compelling reason as like why an MBA is very important. So first, how did you best craft your admissions essay to be a compelling narrative for why an MBA, why Stern, and what advice do you have for someone who may be preparing for that admissions interview?
One piece of advice I have is definitely have some specific details that you can point to. So part of like admissions is you're essentially trying to get the person across the table from you to buy into your vision of yourself like 10 years down the road kind of. So you're trying to paint as best as you can a picture of what this future you and your future career would look like. And as clear as you can make that picture and communicate that, the easier it's going to be for that other person to say like, hey, that's a great idea. I can really support that. I think that's an awesome thing to do. And so in order to help people to kind of understand this vision that you have, I think the details really make it. And so, for example, when I tried to say that I wanted to do healthcare, but kind of nonprofit, but also including some business stuff, I mean, that can sound really, really vague, but saying like, hey, there's a program out, the World Health Organization, that deals with these specific, like, you know, infectious diseases that I'm really interested in, and they're having a lot of financial issues, funding issues, they get a lot of government grants, like these are the kind of problems and this is the sphere I want to work in. That becomes a lot more clear to the people that I'm talking to about, okay, now I can kind of imagine what you're trying to do, and now that I understand it better, I can see myself supporting that and want to get behind it. And so having those, you know, whether it's like an idealized, you know, job, a dream career, if you would, like having things like that pointed out. And obviously we're not committing ourselves to these things, like, you know, 10 years down the road, nobody's going to come and say like, well, did you actually get that job? But it's just an idea of like, you know, painting a picture and giving examples, pointing to examples of like, what are the different aspects in the program's curriculum that you're interested in, whether it's classes, whether it's experiential stuff, what are the resources at Stern that you're hoping to take advantage of that can really help admissions people like understand, okay, like once you come here and you join this community, like we can really see how you're going to take advantage of the whole entire environment and really kind of mesh into the community.
Great, yeah, that's great advice. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you to Tiffany, Greg, and Connie. We really appreciate you kind of sharing your time with us. And so, you know, of course, I always like to end these things by saying, like, the conversation shouldn't stop here. So as prospective students, please, you know, feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you may have. Visit us if you get a chance to. Reach out to some of our current students. They'd be more than happy to chat with you. And so that kind of concludes our presentation for today. Again, we really appreciate you tuning in and hope you found this information helpful and insightful. And again, if you have any questions or want to learn more, want to chat with someone here at Stern, you can, of course, visit our website. You can email us, the admissions team, at our general inbox. That's at Stern MBA. Accounts, and then you can also reach out to current students who work in our office at MBA GA, our graduate ambassadors. So feel free to direct your inquiries to them as well. And we wish you the best of luck in your MBA journey and hope to chat with all of you again soon. Thank you.